the National Business Review, there were hundreds of millions of dollars of wasted money.
Simon Bridges.
I hope a reasonably short call. Just to, in regard to part one, really elaborate on the commonality National members have actually with Labor members, but also, I suppose, underscore some of the differences. And I want to start, as I say, by really agreeing with what the Honourable David Parker said at the start of his contribution before the dinner break, where he said, look, actually, the Greens are entirely wrong to say that we're not united on most of this. In fact, the matter was an exceptional select committee process, and I know that this is the kind of thing that's often said in this House, perhaps by some somewhat insincerely, but it is true to say that when members sat around, we very much, and I agree with David Parker on this, and commend the then chair, now the Honourable Chester Burrows, for the way it was handled. But we went into that very much with a view that we were not going to increase the powers of the state. And I remember sitting down with charts and diagrams, so we went through the various agencies and their powers before and after, and I think we were scrupulous in that regard to have here a bill that does not, and contrary to what the Greens say, essentially increase the powers of the state. So to some extent, I'll come to the Honourable David Parker's point. I'm not going to shortchange him on that. I'm going to come to that. The basic point still holds, though, that actually, in relation to the vast majority of this bill, most of this Parliament's united. We actually aren't trying to increase powers. We're trying to bring this law into the modern day to, as Cam Calder has spoken about, keep up with this ever-increasing flow of technology. But I do want to deal with the Serious Fraud Office because, yes, there's some disagreement. And I think it is worth David Parker, and I don't criticise him for this, but he has given, can I say, a Labor Party version of the history of the Serious Fraud Office. Now, that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, the Serious Fraud Office was originally, as I understand it, set up by a Labor Party government, by Sir Geoffrey Palmer, and actually back then they gave, OK, Richard Prebble, good friend of Leanne's, I'm sure. Leanne and Richard are they share the same sort of general philosophy of politics and life in general. But coming back to the point, it was set up by a Labor government. The powers then that were given were generally seen as right, and they increased the powers for the SFO. They gave the SFO more powers to do the sort of things that David Parker's talking about than were given to other authorities, right? And now, and I accept, look, the Labor Party perhaps had a change of heart in government, and we know that David Parker's government, I think with the assistance of New Zealand First, wanted to disband the Serious Fraud Office. I'm not going to go into the reasons for that, but that's, well, they wanted to, they say merge, I say disband the Serious Fraud Office into the police and have the police running this sort of thing. As I actually recall it, with the same powers that the SFO had, actually. But in any event, the point is, that's the history. So I think we do need to be clear on the history. But I want to say this. There are actually very good reasons, there is a strong rationale for giving the Serious Fraud Office different and, in fact, increased powers than a whole lot of other state agencies, such as the police, have. And the reason for that is this. Actually, day in, day out, the Serious Fraud Office are dealing with exceptionally complex white-collar crime that cannot easily be solved. It is being perpetrated by very sophisticated customers, and the SFO actually does need, I'm sorry to say, when they are dealing with these people, the sort of powers that they have had and I think should continue to have. And again, I don't want to sort of become a legal historian, but I know earlier when we debated, I think, the second part of this bill, Dennis O'Rourke talked about Star Chamber. I think it actually is right to remember that the rationale for the right to silence, Mr. Speaker,
Simon Bridges.
for the right to silence, and many of the, I suppose, now fundamental tenets of our legal system came from a system where in the United Kingdom illiterate people could not defend themselves. They were being bamboozled, they didn't understand what was going on, and from that we got a right to silence where you wouldn't have words put in their mouth, where they wouldn't be signing things that they didn't understand. That is a world away from what the Serious Fraud Office is dealing with day in, day out. They are dealing with sophisticated white-collar criminals, and actually the rationale for the right to silence and many of those things just do not hold up at quite the same level when we're talking about those kind of people that they do when we're talking about actually the sort of people Dennis O'Rourke was talking about in his speech in the second reading. So, in summary, Mr. Chair, what I'm really saying to this House is actually the vast majority of members in this House agree with most of this bill. They believe that actually we're not increasing vastly the powers of the state. I accept there are differences when it comes to the Serious Fraud Office's powers, but what I'm saying actually is when you look at the history, the Labor Party previously has been prepared to, in fact, were the ones that signed us up to an SFO with increased powers, and actually the rationale for giving the Serious Fraud Office powers that actually other state agencies don't have are pretty strong.
Honourable Leanne Dalziel.
Mr. Chairman, I